Hey everyone, this is Chris Sear with the Fueled Podcast. So Matt, you're the CEO. How long have you been in that role?
Almost 2 years now. I took over as CEO of Dodge, and it's been an absolute thrill. I've been with the brand on and off since 2013, and my first car was a Dodge. So
your first car was
the first car was a Dodge, so it's a dream come true.
What kind of car was it?
Dodge Shadow ES with a 5-speed manual.
No way.
Oh yeah.
So driving a manual, so you love being connected to the car and just learning a little bit more about that.
Absolutely.
Do you have any incidents as a teenager or issues or any driving stories that we should know about?
I had to convince my mom that it was normal to go through a set of tires at 9,000 miles, and that I was being safe. She was not too happy when that one came about.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. So just get spinning around like straight lines, or what were you doing where you're burning tires?
Stoplight to stoplight, and as fast as I could every time, and trying to show my sister that she wasn't going to beat me, and we had, it was a great time.
Nice. Do you have an older sister?
Younger sister. She's 11 months younger, so we had to share a car, which was sometimes a little less fun than you want.
Yeah, no, I had a similar experience with my sister. She's 2 years younger than me, but we lived in a rural part of Colorado, so I always had to take her to school, and my goal was to scare her, but we had a lot of loose surface, so I was sliding around in more rally techniques than I was doing anything in a straight line. When I hit a tree, 3 months into having my driver's license, I really couldn't convince my parents that I was doing much safe things. But I guess 22 years later, here we are, and I might have been the right call.
Yeah, trees are a little less forgiving than some things.
So, tell me about getting the role of CEO. I mean, I took 22 years for me to get here and what I'm doing. What did you have to do to actually achieve the kind of top pinnacle executive role at a big OEM company?
Yeah, so it started, I grew up in the industry, so I'm second generation. My dad's a Chrysler retiree, so I grew up around the business on the dealer side of things, and after college I went out and did some supply chain consulting for probably about 6 days before I realized that was not what I wanted to be.
Okay.
Everything just seemed less impactful. Being in the automotive industry, it's the second biggest purchase most people ever make in their life.
Sure.
And there's something about this industry that's captivating. So I went to work in the Chicago Business Center for then Daimler Chrysler, calling on dealers, and just kept at it one role after another. And I left Daimler Chrysler in 2004 to go to the agency side, still in the automotive, still working with Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealers. Worked on the agency side for about 10 years in several different roles, and I came back over to the OEM side. I realized a lot in those 10 years, and I really like being on the manufacturing side, the product side.
Okay.
Came back to the Dodge brand in 2013 as a brand manager, and it's just been progressing through the ranks in different roles, and I've been given a lot of terrific opportunities. I got to launch the Chrysler Pacifica minivan when that was all new in 2016, and was on the product planning side for a few years.
Yep.
And just trying to understand as much about the business, a student of the business is really it, and never saying no, always being willing to push yourself harder and do more. And then the then CEO at the time, Tim Kaniskas, who's now back at the company, he was CEO of Ram and Dodge, and he decided to retire, and that lasted about 6 months before he came back. But when he retired, they asked me to take over as CEO of the Dodge brand, and I was ecstatic to do it.
You're just willing to say yes, right? Like,
absolutely.
Such a huge key, and I've gotten to work with a lot of smaller business owners and advising people and taking chances, right? Like, you have to be willing to get yourself uncomfortable and maybe take on more than you're maybe qualified for at that moment, and then figure it out.
Absolutely. Jump in the deep end, right?
Was there anything that you found in this role that's been like a challenge or something you weren't expecting, or anything that you didn't expect to have as a challenge?
I'm learning every single day.
And
I think that's just all of us. The industry is ever evolving. It's a fast-paced industry, and constant being a student of the business, willing to admit when you make a mistake and willing to move on. But the biggest thing is, like anything, is you're only as good as your team, and you have to spend time helping them develop and becoming better, and that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is working with my team.
As an executive, right, I pride myself on the leadership side, right? What are your keys to leadership, or if someone was looking at taking a CEO role, would you have any advice for them on what you think makes a good leader?
Oh, absolutely. I've got a long list of things that I've written down over the years of things that I've had the great fortune of working with some terrific leaders, and quite honestly, some not so good leaders.
And that's just as good education half the time as anything else, right?
Absolutely. You learn how you want to lead and how you don't want to lead. And I think one of the things I tell everybody is, if you want to succeed, never let them see you sweat. And that can be interpreted a lot of different ways. Some people say fake it till you make it, but find a way to get things done. Find a way to stay calm under pressure. Don't let things overwhelm you too quick. It always gets overwhelming in the moment.
Right.
But if you can just take a few breaths, step back, talk it out, work with people on your team, work with colleagues. This isn't brain surgery. This isn't rocket science. We can find a way to do something different to drive engagement. So try and stay calm under pressure, and that's something you have to learn over time. But
Right.
you have to push yourself to not get overwhelmed.
Yeah, especially when you're the leader of a team and like maybe it's a tough financial moment, or you're trying to make a tough decision that maybe some people might lose their jobs, and you've got to still be the head of that and like reinforce the people that are still there that there's still a future for them, and deal with some of the really hard decision making that has to get done. And it doesn't look good when you're the one crying at your desk, right?
Absolutely.
Which is the hard part, because sometimes I am crying at my desk.
People can read that emotion, and if they see you uncomfortable and frustrated, losing it and out of control, then what do? They react similarly. So
Right.
you got to set that example.
Which is sometimes hard to do. What is there any good experiences or things from a bad leader that you try to do the opposite of? Is there any kind of big lessons that you've had in your past?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. And at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in helping people get better, and not being willing to own up to the mistakes, take the blame, and not place blame on others.
Yeah.
I'll never take credit for somebody else's actions, and I reach out, I go out of my way to make sure that people see that they get credit and that their work is appreciated. But at the same time, if something doesn't go that way, be the first to accept blame and not place it on the rest of your team, and set that good example.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will they'll follow you a long way if you can show that type of behavior.
And it's funny because that's such classic advice, and it's so hard to sometimes implement that, right? Like if you're a student of leadership, it's there's pretty much 4 or 5 rules, and one of them being the golden rule. And we have to keep reiterating that over and over again, because we kind of still fail to do it sometimes. And like that's the hard part about being a leader, is doing the hard things.
Oh yeah.
I have a little saying on my notebook. It's hard work versus working hard, right? So
Absolutely.
like, what's the difference? And you can work hard a lot, but doing the hard work is what is the key to being a good leader, right?
Very well said.
So what is your, any other challenges that you faced, or did you ever have an opportunity where you had another job opportunity, or someone was trying to pull you away? Like, was there a junction or a moment where you realized like this was the biggest decision that has affected my life to get to where I am right now?
Oh, that's a good question. Fortunately, since I've been with FCA and Stellantis since 2013 now, I've had so many opportunities within the company every
That's so cool.
12 to 18 months to 2 years, that it's always a constant challenge. It's always pushed me. I've never even thought for a minute that I was getting bored or I needed more. That's every time. When it just something, they keep putting more on you and asking for you to take on something new. So it's been terrific. I've almost
awesome.
I learned on the job a lot of times.
Yeah. But you don't really have that. There's not like that one clear moment in time for you. Some people have that, right? Like it was like the one moment that they made that decision that has affected everything else. You're kind of 1,000 cuts we got you here, right? A little bit of opportunity, keep saying yes.
And I spent 10 years on the agency side with small businesses, and I learned a lot about the differences between large corporations and small companies, and it's vastly different in the pace and the decision making. And I thrive in this environment. We got 250,000 people in the company, and
yeah, that's amazing.
It's 15,000 or so in Auburn Hills, where our headquarters is for North America, and it's just it's a blast to be with that many people.
So cool. And something, how about balancing home life and work-life responsibilities? How do you deal with the balance of that?
I've got a great wife, and I met her. We were working in the company together as district managers. So from that standpoint, she's very familiar with the trials of the day, and she's easy to talk to about it.
She's been there though through the phases of your life.
Absolutely. So, but I think when you love something and it's not, it's just part of my life. And my boys, I've got 2 boys, a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. They're into it. I try and incorporate them into work as much as I can. They love the business. So it's just part of who we are. And it's not really a separation between work and life. But I try and go to all their sporting events and be there as much as I can. And you do what you can, and you try and take the time when you can. There's sometimes you can't work it out, but for the most part, it's worked out very well.
It's the word balance. I think a lot of us have agreed it doesn't really exist. So you just try to ebb and flow with life. As one thing gets more attention than the other.
Absolutely.
And we just try to do a good job of respecting some of the limits that we try to put in place. And I try to be my son's little league baseball head coach, right on top of balancing everything else. And so it's like, when it's that time of year, I do make those commitments to try to be.
Oh, and he'll remember it forever.
And me as well, right?
Yeah,
I just wanted to be a part of that. So thank you for this.
Thanks for having us out here. It was terrific.